We have designed the driveway to the municipality standards, and we have dedicated a space for a wheelchair lift in the future. By moving the garden suite and driveway closer to the existing house, it would make it less accessible and more complicated because there is more slope to deal with for the person in a wheelchair.
Okay, we'll call this meeting of the Board of Variance to order. Some housekeeping first. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? No. Carried, and a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting on February 28th. Seconded and carried. Okay, the matter before us, the Board of Variance appeal for 549 Delora Drive. Kelsey, would you like to talk to this? Thank you.
Okay. My apologies. Good evening. So the application for tonight's Board of Variance is requesting to decrease the setback from a front lot line for an accessory building from 7.5 meters to 1.5 meters. The request is to vary the accessory building section of the land use bylaw, which notes that no accessory building shall be located less than 15 meters from a front lot line unless it complies with the front yard setback requirements applicable to the principal building. The property at 549 Delora Drive is zoned R1, which permits a 7.5 meter front yard setback. Therefore, the accessory building would need to be sited at least 7.5 meters from the front lot line. The applicant is proposing a 1.5 meter setback from the front to enable the development of an accessory dwelling unit, also known as a garden suite. Based on the definition in the land use bylaw, Delora Drive is considered the front lot line or the front yard. The driveway access for the current principal dwelling is located off a private easement in the rear of the lot. All other technical regulations for the garden suite are met in this proposal. There are no city register covenants on title that affect this application, and if approved, an environmental hazard and form and character development permit will be required. The applicant is attending via Zoom tonight. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey. What we'll do is ask for anyone who wishes to talk about this application to come forward, but first we'll hear from the applicant. Is the applicant present?
Yes, hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, go ahead, please.
Hi there. My name is Hitesh Parekh. I'm from Villamar Design. I'll be speaking in behalf of the homeowner of 549 Delora Drive. We're asking for a relaxation for the front yard setback. Excuse me. I understand that the city is changing the garden suite requirements to allow the application for 90 square meter garden suites. which I hear was passed yesterday afternoon. It may look like we're asking for a lot in this BOV application, but there is almost 7.5 meters from Delora Drive curb to the proposed garden suite deck. If you look on the side of Delora Drive, you can see other houses that are placed closer to Delora Drive. That being said, this garden suite shouldn't feel out of place. This property is in an R1 zone, which allows for a garden suite up to now 90 square meters. Typically, you'll find it in the rear lot, but in this situation, if we wanted to fit it in the rear lot, it would be very awkward in a very small garden suite. The setback from the existing garage of the house is 7.5 meters to the laneway, which doesn't leave us any usable space for the garden suite. The combined garden suite setback and the building separation alone on this side wouldn't allow us for any building other than an oversized outhouse. The proposed garden suite location is in the best spot for achieving an accessibility accessory dwelling, which is one of our primary goals with this accessory dwelling. Being in the front yard, it's not optimal, but we are almost 7.5 meters from the curb of Delora Drive to the proposed deck. Another 1.2 to the building face. The 1.5 meter setback variance we are asking for is to the deck, not the actual garden suite. But I understand that it's still a part of the structure. We have 8.6 meters from the curb of Delora Drive to the garden suite. So visually speaking, if you look at the vicinity map, top right of the second sheet, we would be similar to a couple single family dwellings along the street. So if you, so it would feel similar in our opinion, and definitely not out of place. We have received a few supporting letters from the neighbors for this application. In terms of the driveway, we have designed the driveway to municipal standards, and we have dedicated a space for a wheelchair lift in the future. By moving the garden suite and driveway closer to the existing house, it would make it less accessible and more complicated because there is more slope to deal with for the person in the wheelchair. With the construction of this garden suite, we will have to remove one tree for sure, and we'll be retaining an arborist during the permit stages. We looked into other options for this garden suite, but it created a lot of wasted space with only 90 square meters and aiming to achieve accessibility. We find that the location and the layout is the best option and still provides a good amount of privacy. In the overall scheme of the neighborhood, we feel like the garden suite would fit right in the surrounding houses. Thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned letters from neighbors, supporting letters from neighbors. Did you submit those to us?
Yeah,
Because
we had two supporting letters, but unfortunately we received them and weren't able to, we missed the deadline for that.
And are the applicants themselves with us, either online or in person? Thank you. Okay, any questions, committee?
No question.
Hello, everybody.
I see in the package here that the city adopted a new rule yesterday. And is that modifying this 7-meter setback or just area?
Okay, thank you. So the amendments to the land use bylaw yesterday increased the accessory dwelling unit size to 90 square meters, but it did not have any amendments for the front yard setback. It had some amendments to other setbacks, but not to the front.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
You've got changes to the rear setbacks, but not to the front. Is it pursuant to the third reading of the first amendment of the bylaw from the March 23rd council meeting? Do you know, Jasmine?
So last night, council adopted a set of regulations that added flexibility and reduced side yard setbacks and rear yard setbacks for accessory dwelling units. It allowed them to be 2 stories in height and be larger than prior. Before, the accessory dwelling units were only allowed to be a maximum of 60 square meters, and now they are allowed to be up to 90 square meters, which is consistent with the size of a secondary suite. So those were, generally speaking, the changes. It's allowing increased flexibility throughout the city of Colwood. I guess in this particular case, the request is site specific in the sense that what the applicant is articulating is that the topography of the site make it challenging for them to locate anything in the rear, and the flattest portion of the lot is located either adjacent to the road or in close proximity to the road right away, or the back of the property where there's already the existing home and a garage. So there's already existing buildings at the back of the lot.
We have made your council has made the change of the allowance of 1.5 meter on the rear property line. Is that with this property, I know it is Delora address, but some neighbors consider Delora to be the backyard and the street behind being the front yard. I'm just looking at what the difference in the setback is for the front right now. And like I say, it's 1.5 meters coming forward at the back. Is that going to be allowed on the front as well by the amendment to the bylaw?
So the definition of front yard and rear yard setback is defined as per the bylaw. So I know to the lay person, it may look like the lane is the front because that's where the access to the house is, but that has no bearing on how we measure setbacks or what we consider a front yard setback. A front yard setback is measured from a road right away, and the lane is not considered a roadway, a public roadway. So for us, the Delora frontage will always be a front yard. And so that's the setback that we're measuring from.
Oh, there we go. The proposed garden building, is that within the allowable building envelope, like for height and that? There's no problem there?
Yes, so the proposed accessory dwelling unit meets all the other regulations with the exception of the front yard setback.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, we'll get back to more questions, I'm sure, later, but we're going to give everyone that wants to speak to this application a chance to do so. Before we ask for other individuals to speak, does the applicant wish to add anything to this presentation? Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this application? Come forward, please. State your name and address.
Oops, I didn't mean to do that, but good. Thank you. My name is Gary Burkwhistle. I live at 552 Delora. And I did submit a letter, and I don't know, it's a little long-winded, so I don't really want to have to read the whole thing if I don't need to, or would you prefer me to do that?
You can do a short form if that's okay with you.
I'll try. And it might look long-winded, but when I had to blow it up so I could read it, it's even longer. This is from my wife and I, Jennifer. She's not here tonight, but I'll speak as we wrote this letter. We did start the letter by saying that we're not totally opposed in principle to the concept to enable development of garden suites within the area, as long as the regulations and legal requirements are met. However, we are extremely opposed to the amount of the variance under section 22.106. I won't ramble there. But if approved, the submitted variance application would decrease the setback from the front lot line for an accessory building from 7.5 meters to 1.5 meters. So 24'7" to 5 feet. In the City of Colwood staff summary report under 3.2, the requirements to consider a variance, it states, in order to approve a variance, the board must find, in your opinion, their opinion, that A, the proposed variance is minor. In our opinion, the reduction of the front setback by a full 6 meters is not minor. The requested variance equates to 80% reduction, and in no way should 80% be considered minor. As you're likely aware, and you heard a little bit here, this west side of Delora is very unique. 7 of the 9 properties in this one section, properties have the access to the front of their homes from an access road, as was mentioned. And the 7 properties at front Delora Drive, it's actually their physical backyard. I'm on the other side, so my front faces them. This means that similar to 549 Delora, there are 6 other properties that could construct a similar garden suite in the future. In fact, one owner has already stated to us that that is his intent to do so. Besides these 7 properties that have backyards facing Delora, and this is where I had a bit of an issue with the presentation from Villamar, all of our properties, all 31 properties, are 7.5 meters minimum from the property line. There's none that are less than that, and some are greater, but most are the 25 feet or 7.5 meters. I built in 1989, so I was 25 feet. So this is quite out of place and unique, and the only one to date that's tried to do this. So these properties are across the road, like ours, are the ones that are most affected. We do agree with the current bylaw. The 7.5 setback would not allow adequate space for the homeowner. But according to Villamar's, the proposed 1.5 meter variance would result in a separation distance from the existing house to the garden suite of 6.7 meters. And all that's required is 4 meters. So we're thinking it could go back, in our opinion, with a little redesign of the house. And I know everything costs money, and a redesign would cost money for sure. I didn't know the process before looking into tonight. I've never had to go to a Board of Variance meeting. I thought there could maybe be an amendment to say, how about 4 meters instead of the 1.1? I know that can't be done. You're voting on tonight whether yay or nay to the 1.5. But we looked at a redesign of the house wider, because they're 5.1 meters from the left side. It could be a longer house, and shallower allowing the house to be pushed back a bit. Sorry, I don't want to ramble too much. We did see in the staff summary report that there seems to be two reasons for undue hardship in this case. The one reason listed in the summary is due to site topography. And then the other one was within the application checklist further along in the literature that was given to us. And it states that the variance for this garden suite would allow the client to have their parents in a comfortable and accessible space. Not doing this would negatively affect the parents' future in this site, their reason to be very close by. In our opinion, if the setback was amended to what I said, the 4 meters, and I know that can't be done tonight, but maybe in the future, if this was rejected tonight and reapplied for, I think both the hardship factors would be eliminated. Parents could still live there. It wouldn't be the 1.5 meters, much more acceptable. There is, and so I'm going to look into this with Colwood a little bit, because there's note in the report that there are no covenants on title that affect the variance request. There is a covenant, legal covenant, with a declaration of building scheme and schedule of restrictive covenants dated 12th day of August 1986, applicable to all these properties on Delora and Torrey, the road below. And it doesn't become null and void till 2086. So there is some issues, I think, with the garden suite itself, but that can be brought up later. A further concern of ours, as well as others that we've talked to, is yes, the application states that the garden suite is intended for the owner's parents. That's the reason for undue hardship. There's obviously would be no timeline or requirement for the current owner to follow through on this plan, to have their parents move in. And in fact, the owner mentioned to me the other day that it will be probably a couple of years and they're going to be renting in the meantime, which I guess they're allowed to do. So I will just bring up one other thing. I don't know if I can. There was another variance meeting to do with Guru Nanak, and that one had a rear setback. And their variance was to reduce the required rear setback from 6 meters to 4 meters. And this was in January 26, 2021. And then again, the causes to the homeowner was undue hardship. The board felt, this is the board discussion at the time, the board felt that this request for a decrease in the setback from 6 meters to 4 meters was a 30 to 33% reduction and was not a minor variance and was denied. So that was 33%. This is 80%. So even greater than. So I think that's it. Sorry, I'm nervous. So no, we just respectfully ask the board to consider that their decision on this variance appeal tonight, and that this will be precedent setting, as it will change. Other people will apply for it. And this is unique. This is the only house that's going to be less than the 7.5 meters from the property line. And I guarantee that fact. I'm not sure where he got his facts from there. So thank you very much. And I do appreciate your time. Do you have any questions? Sorry.
Thank you. We may have some.
Okay.
We may have some questions, but first, I believe the issue of the legality or otherwise regarding the covenants has already been discovered and discussed. Would someone like to speak about that?
Yes, thank you. So there is a design covenant on title, but it's not a covenant that the city is a party to. So it's not applicable in this case.
Thank you. And regarding settings of precedent and references to meetings in the past, we treat each application individually. We do not set preferences, set precedents, and we do not go back to past cases to refer rulings that were made then. We do these on a one-off basis, and we're talking here about only this particular application. Any other people that would like to speak to this application? Come ahead, please state your name and your address.
And it'll turn around? Okay, sorry. Can you hear me through the mask? Okay, good. I live at 546 Delora Drive. My name is Desiree Bond and my husband Wayne is here as well. And we are not in support of the reduction of the setback. I think I sent a letter in, which you can probably reference. But there are some other things, not just aesthetic. The aesthetics also I'm not happy with. I love the way the street looks. I love the feel of it. It's very spacious. But aside from that, Delora is going to become a busy road. We go all the way through now to Winthrop on the plans, as you can see. And the new Wishart Gardens subdivision has a sidewalk starting along there. And when the gentleman was speaking on the screen, he was talking about the distance from the road to the home, including the setback. But that setback will one day be sidewalk. So what we'll have is sidewalk, 1.3 meters, and then a house. And I feel like that's really going to look weird. Not only is it going to look weird, it's a utility easement. So you've got waterworks, electric, whatever else going on. And I know a few years ago, the street, the water main on our street, or the water thing, it broke and we didn't have any water coming into our house. It was on the city side. The city crews had to come in. They dug up the street. They dug up half of our yard to get at that water. So if you have a building right up against that, then you're talking about the foundation of a building. And I mean, if you saw the size of the hole that they had to dig to fix that problem. So it is a utility easement. And now you're crowding a sidewalk with a foundation, and they're including the easement in their front yard, and it's not part of their property. Anyway, I just wanted to add that to the letter that I sent in. Thank you.
Thank you. We may have questions for some of the applicants, some of the speakers at the end, but we'll talk to everyone speak first if we may. Is there anyone else who would like to address this? Come forward, please, and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Eve Millington and my husband Chris is also here. I've written a letter which you may already have a copy of, so I'm not going to read the whole thing because a lot of it is very similar to what Gary Birtwistle presented earlier. However, I would just like to reiterate that as residents of Delora Drive since '96, we have been witness to some dramatic changes to our street. The Wishart Gardens, we supported it. However, that being said, we were in regular discussion with the developer and with certain members of City Council.
Excuse me.
Yes,
Your address is?
553 Delora Drive.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's okay. We reside in one of two residences in that section of Delora Drive on the west side, which actually face the street. Our frontage is on the street. The remaining 7, as Gary pointed out earlier, have their backyards onto Delora Drive. All of the houses on the east side of Delora Drive have the setback of 7.5 meters or more, contrary to what the Villamar designer mentioned earlier. We're in favor of auxiliary dwellings. We don't have an issue with that. Housing is a big issue, and we need to do whatever we can. That being said, we also don't feel that a setback reduction from 7.5 meters to 1.5 meters is in any shape or form a minor setback. Some of you may or may not be familiar with Delora Drive, but it's got a very lovely ambient aesthetic, and you may well consider these on a one per basis. However, that in itself could cause some problems down the road without any firm standard or guidelines, let's say, to what can or cannot be constructed in this particular case, and I'm referring to 7 individual lots, you end up with a mishmash, incoherent, something that's lacking in a master plan, for lack of a better term, something that reflects the consistency that you see in proper developments where there are guidelines, architectural, landscaping, et cetera, and the lots are big enough for auxiliary dwellings. There's lots of opportunity to go wide. The lot we're talking about is 65 feet wide. The auxiliary dwelling is only, I believe, 30 feet wide. So there's room to go sideways, which could satisfy the square footage. And as Gary also mentioned, then go shallower and maybe split the difference on the setback. We're not entirely against the whole setback. However, again, I realize this is a yea or nay this evening. But another option is to go with a smaller footprint, just because the city has enlarged the footprint to 90 square meters. That's over 900 square feet. There are lots of families living in condos in Colwood and Langford that are a lot smaller than 900 square feet, and they're housing 2 bedrooms and children. So just something to keep in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Suitability to the surroundings does come into our deliberations. Does anyone else wish to speak to this? Come ahead, please. Name and address and so forth.
Hi there, Derek Sketchley from 549 Delora Drive. So we're the ones looking to build. I just wanted to make a couple notes here. The first person that was speaking here, Gary, talked about how 7 of the 9 properties up on my side of Delora, up the laneway, are all positioned in a certain way. And so for us, that is our front yard. So when they're saying it's all different and everything, this is our front yard. For us, we're looking to build in our backyard. Obviously, the way you guys call it, this is the front yard, it's their front yard, they're looking at it. I get that. But the concern of all the other neighbors building is just not something that can happen right now. We had to run a sewer main over to our house 3 years ago. And a lot of those properties that everybody's talking about, they're not on sewer. So they would not be able to actually build an ADU unless they were to take out their septic, go on sewer, but they'd have to run the sewer main. And like, it's not really that plausible, because we had a scan of the road when we got our sewer main extended, and it went right up the road, and it's like, it's all rock. So you're looking at like $300,000 just to blow a new sewer main in there. So that's one of my points that I want to talk about to address the issue of everybody then like changing the landscape of our area. And again, it is a unique property, and it is very accessible from Delora Drive. We are asking for the setback of 1.5 meters instead of going a little bit more up. But it is one of the 2 issues is the topography. So as you go further up, it is very steep. And so when you're trying to think about, like, my dad's girlfriend is in a wheelchair, we think about issues of her rolling down. So the lower that we can do it, the better it's going to be and the safer it's going to be for her. And then, sorry, I was reading my notes here. As far as the aesthetics, we're keeping it very similar. The design looks just like our house. It's going to have hardy plank siding, which is going to look very similar. And then the shape of it, as Hitesh was saying earlier, if we were to go wider, sure, we can make the square footage work, but then it makes it a lot harder because we've got a driveway on the one side and then the carriage house, which is 30 feet. So it's a bit misleading when you say it's 65 feet wide and a house that's 30, because there's parking that we have to accommodate as well on the one side that we've already tried to accommodate. And I think that is everything. Sorry, a bit nervous speaking here. Yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this application? Your name and address, please.
Good evening. John Briggs, 556 Delora Drive. Can I first of all ask, Have you people driven by the subject property?
We have all visited the property,
Good.
yes.
Okay. The property involved in this variance is quite unique. There's probably no other property in the province of British Columbia that's of this configuration where you've got the front of the house and the back of the house where Delora is a main artery. The applicant is doing the best they can with the property that they purchased. They're making good use of the latest fad to use fill-in for the larger lots. The building designer is using the back for their lot. Unfortunately, the back is our front view. The neighbors on Delora are retirees or hardworking folk who conform to what is required. What is proposed here doesn't conform. It's too small for the covenant that's on all our properties. Have you people been able to know that of the covenant that's on the property for 1,200 square feet?
The city of Colwood has reviewed all of those details and has assured us that this building is appropriate for the property. We're here dealing only with whether or not whether or not we can give up a specific.
Do I understand that they're kind of ignoring this then?
I don't believe they're ignoring it. No, I believe just a moment ago, we talked about the fact that these are considered to not be a problem for this particular build.
Would you like a copy of the covenant for you to be in your hands?
No, I would not. Thank you, though.
Okay. The covenant reads 1,200 square feet minimum for each dwelling and at least one single attached garage door.
Excuse me if I may, if that covenant or any other legal covenant should become an issue at some point in time, then the building permit stage is where that would come into play, not in the.
I'm sorry, the sound isn't good enough for me to hear you.
Am I on here? Just-
Yes, yeah.
Our concern here is whether or not to grant this variance. There are many, many steps before this actual property would be built upon. Building permit, geotechnical surveys, many other things. The time when these legalities would come up would be at one of these further stages, not at this stage today. But thank you for your comments.
Okay. The new purchasers have already built a new fence. And this fence is on the east side is entirely in the easement land. It's not on the boundary. Non-conformity is what we're discussing tonight. And I'm totally against the 1.5 meters because I can stretch my arms out and that's more than 1.5 meters. If built as presented, it's totally out of character for the homes on our street. Therefore, doesn't conform. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address this application? Okay, thank you. Committee members, does anyone wish to ask questions of any of the presenters or of the applicant? Okay. We're going to close off this part of the meeting now, and the committee will deliberate as to exactly what we're going to do here. We may have questions for staff. Those in the audience may or may not wish to attend this deliberation portion. You're welcome to stay if you like. You're not required to. Thank you. Okay, we've finished our deliberations. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of approving this application? Those against approving this application? So the application is declined. The reasons for the decline are that we don't consider that the requested variance was a minor. We don't. Excuse, what am I hearing? Those against. Okay, the application is declined. Committee's reasons are that we don't consider that the requested variance is a minor variance. We don't feel that the variance is really addressing any undue hardships. And we don't feel that the variance would have resulted in an appropriate development of the site. The applicants may carry forward and request a development permit from the council. And that is the end of our deliberation. Motion to close the meeting. And the meeting is closed. Thank you.